Lesson 8-9, Solve Problems Involving Volume. In this lesson, we're going to use the area of a base of a three-dimensional figure in order to find the volume. Recall that the volume is the space inside a three-dimensional figure, like a box. And also, when we measure volume, remember that your units will have a little 3 next to them, as you see here in these examples, because you have 3 dimensions that you will be multiplying to find that volume. In this lesson, our focus is going to be solely on learning how to use the volume formula. Example 1 is a little bit more complex because it relies on you knowing how to find the area of a trapezoid. Cora has an aquarium with exotic fish. The tank is the size and shape of a trapezoidal prism. The distance from the front glass to the back is 2 feet. What is the volume of the aquarium tank? So we can see here in the picture that we have a variety of dimensions. And then we can look at the sketch here in step 1 to use those dimensions to find the volume of that fish tank. First thing that we need to do is find the area of the base of the prism. In this case, that base is a shape of a trapezoid. And to find the shape of a trapezoid, the area, we need 1/2 times, add the 2 bases together, and then multiply by the height. So in this case, one base is 3 feet, the other base is 6 feet. So you're going to add the 3 and the 6 to get 9. Base 1 plus base 2 equals 9. And then you're going to multiply that times the height, which is the distance between the 2 bases on the trapezoid. And you can see down here they've marked that at 2 feet. And then we need to take half of that because a trapezoid does have the triangular shapes in it. What we find here from doing that is that the area of this trapezoid is 9 square feet. In order to find the volume of the prism, that means the three-dimensional shape, where we have the trapezoids as the shapes of the bases, we need to take the area of that base and multiply it times the height of the prism. In other words, how tall is that fish tank? In this case, the height of the prism is that 5 feet. That is the height. So the volume of this tank, this aquarium or fish tank, is 9 times 5 or 45 cubic feet. Remember, volume is measured in cubic units. That means whatever the unit is to the 3rd power. Now we're going to do the triad at the bottom of the page. What is the volume of the triangular prism? Well, the first thing that we need to notice is that this is a triangular prism, which means the bases are both triangles. And because those are both triangles, then what I need to do is find the area of that triangle, that base shape here, that's this right here. And then we're going to multiply that by the height of that prism. In other words, the distance between those 2 bases. So to find the area of a triangle, we need to do 1/2 times the base times the height of the triangle. In this case, the triangle has a base and a height of 8 times 6. Oops, hang on a second. There we go. They gave me a box for each of them. So the base of that triangle is 8 and the height is 6. Now, 1/2 times 8 times 6 is 24. And then we need the height of the prism itself, which is 14. Now, what would the volume be for this prism? This volume is 336 cubic centimeters. In the convince me, we need to just take a look here at this part. What is the shape of the base of this figure? In this case, this was the triangle. Once we find the area of the base, no matter what the shape of the base is for the prism, then to find the volume, we need to do this area and multiply it times the height of the prism. We're going to skip example 2, so you can cross that out, and we're going to move on to example 3. Example 3 asks us to find volumes of composite figures. Finding the volume of a composite figure is going to work in a similar fashion to finding the surface area of a composite figure. If you separate the figure into its individual parts, you can find the volume of each part and then add the results back together. So that's what they've done here in this example 3. Saquon has a shed for his athletic equipment. What is the total volume of the shed? Well, we're going to find the volume of the bottom section, and the bottom section is in the shape of a cube. So the base of that cube is a square, and the area of that square is 18 by 18. That's this piece right here. The height of that cube is another 18. So you end up doing 18 times 18, which is 324. That's this piece right here, times another 18, which is the height of the prism. So the volume of the bottom section is 5,832 cubic feet. In step 2, we're going to find the volume of the top section. The top section is a triangular prism. So we are going to first find the area of the base, which is the triangle of that prism. And you'll notice that the labels are back here on the back triangle. And you see a height of 10. And you see here a base of 18. So to find the area of that triangle, we're going to do 1/2 times 18 times 10, which is 90. Now, the other dimension that we need is the other dimension on that prism, which they've already put in 18, but where did that come from? Well, when you go back to the diagram, don't forget that this triangular prism that sits on top of your shed, okay, is actually sitting on top of that square. And because it's a square, then that means that the distance here along any of these sides, the distance between those two triangles on any of these three sides is also 18. Okay, so that means when I look up here at the original diagram, the distance between the two triangle bases is 18. So the height of that top prism is also 18 feet, which means 90 times 18 is 1,620 cubic feet. To find the volume of the entire shed, then we need to add those two figures together, and we get a grand total of 7,452 cubic feet. Now we're going to try the same thing with the try it at the bottom of the page. So I'm going to move my page up, give us some working room. You may need to have a little bit extra paper to do this, or if you have room above the try it here, you may have enough space to fit that all in. All right, so I'm just going to try and fit in as much as I can above, and then what I can't fit in, I'll put in the white space below. So Amber built a custom terrarium for her plants. What is the volume of the terrarium? Well, when I look over here, it looks like an L shape, which means I should be able to divide this terrarium into two parts where each part is a rectangular prism. So next I need to decide, how am I going to split that up? Well, there are a couple of ways to do it. I can take the terrarium and I can cut it right here so that we have this piece here, and then we would have another piece, and I'm going to color this one in red, or outline this one in red, and we would have this part of the terrarium in red. So this piece of the terrarium would be the right side in red, and then we would have the tall terrarium piece that is outlined in black. So let's look at the black part of that terrarium first. Okay, the volume of the black portion of the terrarium, remember, is still a base times a height, where that capital B stands for the area of the base, which in this case is a rectangle. So that's a length and a width of that rectangle or triangle. Well, in this case, they're all rectangles, right? Okay, so here are my bases. I'm shading those in black here. And I need the dimensions. Well, I see one dimension is 10, and the other dimension isn't outwardly given to me on this figure, but I can see it over here on the far right side, that 10 inches stands for this piece, which is the same as this piece here, which is the same as that edge. So this is actually a 10 by 10 square for that base shape, which we all know is 100. So the volume is going to be 100 times the height. And in this problem, the height is 30. So the volume of that left side is going to be 3,000 inches cubed. Now let's talk about the volume of the red side. Okay, so let me go back and number these. So number 1 is this figure right here, and then number 2 is going to be the red terrarium over here on the right side. So again, this volume is still a base times a height. So this time we need to pick out what base numbers are we using, and then what height are we using. Well, in this case, the base is this right here, this rectangle that you see along the bottom and then along the top. And that base, still being a rectangle, is a length times a width. And the length is 40, and the width is 10. So that base has an area of 400, and then we need to complete that by multiplying by the height. In this case, the height of the terrarium on that side is just 12. So the volume is 4,800 inches cubed on that side. In order to find the total volume of the terrarium, we're going to add 3,000 plus 4,800, and we get 7,800 inches cubed.